Hi, this is Angela with the Leadership Coach Group, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Sarah Sutton, one of our coaches. Sarah, it's a pleasure to meet you.
It's so good to be with you, Angela.
And I am looking forward to learning more about your coaching style. Can you help tell me about that?
Yes, thank you for asking. So, most leadership development coaches really focus on skills and strength building, which is definitely a part of what we do. Where I like to approach things differently is I like to say, call a truce on yourself, to stop fighting yourself and really remember and trust in your greatness again. So the analogy I like to give is of a tennis coach doesn't get right to, helping you excel. They work first on revealing your hidden defaults and your foibles, and then also especially that mindset of remembering and trusting your potential. So that's, in addition to kind of asking the risky questions and pulling threads, that's what I try to do every session with every client. And actually just the other day, just to give you an example, I had a leadership client that she wanted to work on influence, particularly managing up. Well, when we talked about what that is, she said, it's about relationship. Well, the flaw that was getting in her mind was that she was treating more senior leaders not as just other humans. And when she remembered that actually she's really a good relational person, I could see her confidence grow. She just I just have to be myself. And that's what I mean by reveal those hidden deficits and then anchor back into what you know about yourself.
And whenever you were doing your training for coaching, what was some favorite tools and techniques that you learned that you enjoy using to help get to those fundamental places with your clients?
Well, there are a few things, and my style is a little bit of a hybrid with training because I figured that it helps to have a framework of what is executive presence, what is influential speaking, or how to empower your people. And then together we figure out what the coaching application is. I also use some assessments. I have a relationship intelligence assessment I really love. There's the leadership circle profile, which is a 360, again, to reveal those hidden deficits or defaults in order to then coach on them. But really, coaching is such an organic process that we really need to just trust in the process itself and in each other, the coach and the coachee. So what that means is I like to frame focus areas for that day as what's the heart of the question that we want to explore together. And then what is it that you want to walk away with? So having that frame and then just, being very present, maybe using some analogies and just, in coaching, we talk about coming to a generative moment where you can see the insight. That's what we're really after. So it's the best tool is just trusting the process.
And your background, tell me a little bit about that. How long have you been in coaching and what inspired you to get into coaching?
I have been coaching for almost 19 years, and I actually started as a health and wellness coach. My background is in exercise science, and my first business was actually outdoor fitness training. But that's already, where I learned that kind of the irony of my whole career is that in grad school for exercise science, I gained weight. But I realized that I, was questioning myself, things were in disarray. And that's where I really learned that any behavior change has to start with the mindset. So I worked as a health editor. So it was really health communications. And then I went into, in addition to having my own business, it was really corporate wellness, helping to direct both internally and externally. I worked at a medical group. Externally for patients, internally helping to coach employees. But then I also have been a director for corporate wellness, developing and launching for a government contractor here in the Washington, D.C. area. So that's my first start, was this mix in well-being in a couple different ways. But then I just started realizing that I was working with leaders to help them bridge their leadership development with their self-care. And that's where I started refining my style and getting more into the executive and leadership coaching that I do.
That's awesome. And as far as your passions, obviously health and fitness is outside of coaching. Other than that, what is something that you really enjoy that makes you who you are?
Well, so definitely well-being. I love to bake. That's the irony for me too, is that there's always this balance. Have a rescue dog. Love getting out for dog walks. But one thing that in addition to speaking to the well-being piece, is that as appropriate, I'm a faith-based coach. So I really anchor into my own faith, but I'm open to helping others explore their faiths, particularly with how are you living that out on the job. I feel like the spiritual side of things in corporate is not really explored just yet. So, and that can make a huge difference, as well as the personal side, what you're doing in your other roles as a parent, as a child of a parent, can actually be very applicable to the job. So helping others to really develop those applications makes a big difference. I once saw a quote that we grow neither better nor worse as we age, but more like ourselves. And I love that. So just, again, helping somebody to really get to the essence of who they are, but then let's figure out how to apply that, can be so complex and yet simple and beautiful at the same time.
It is all a balancing act, and it sounds like you have done a wonderful job of that in your personal life. So I'm sure that's one of your strengths of being able to help clients too. If you could say that you had an ideal type of client or situation that is something that you focus on coaching toward, what would that be?
Definitely the umbrella is confidence. So it's confidence in 3 different ways. We talked about bridging your development with your self-care. It's also about developing your true leadership style, which I'll speak to in a moment. And then the third aspect is helping you to really create more effective communication. So the example I'd like to give about the leadership brand, which, a lot of people talk about that, but I feel like it ends up being more resume speak. The example I'd like to give is there's a senior leader that I actually have a session with her in the next hour that is of learning and instruction at a university. And when I asked her about a story of impact, she remembered working, I think at high school, and there was this student who was ready to flunk out. All the teachers were flunking him. She told him, you know what, if you just come to my class and show up, I will pass you. And together in noodling on that story, what she realized is, and this was her unique value proposition, is I create space so others can hold their heads high. And that's not resume speak. Nobody can really claim that as their own, but she uses it as a guiding compass for her decisions, to rally her team. Hey team, remember I and we are about creating space. How are we going to do that here with this department or this student population? She uses it to reflect on for herself when she feels like her balance is out of kilter. So how am I going to create space for myself this weekend? So once, again, somebody really sees that for themselves and really anchors into a brand, I can see their confidence rise. It's just so incredibly impactful. And then in terms of the communication piece, difficult conversations, it's amazing how as leaders, they're not really taught to manage very well. But it starts with, how can we see this as not a difficult conversation? How can we reframe it as a learning conversation? So that's back to really trying to see how your defaults are getting in the way. Let's work on that. And then once we shift that, the technique for how you're going to do that really becomes very seamless.
Well, Sarah, it has been a pleasure to be able to get to know you a little bit better today, and would love to just be able to help get you matched up with the clients that is going to be the best fit for you to be able to work with.
Thank you, Angela. And the last thing I would say is just that I'm ready to work with a client who is questioning the status quo and especially ready to take themselves on. So if that's you, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sarah.